Question. Hi Kim. I was asking myself, how could this muscle testing be 100% accurate? Is it not asking the subconscious mind? And while we ask the subconscious mind, we expect it to be all pure and wise, while we hope that this is the way of how to communicate with the divine. So I assume that the subconscious mind is as much affected by the duality consciousness as is our conscious mind. Do you also see it like that? Well, first, a little bit of background if you're not familiar with muscle testing. I actually talked about it in another video about David Hawkins. But muscle testing is a method where you are using a muscle reflex to answer certain questions. For example, a person holds out the arm. I have to be very careful I don't look like Elon Musk. And a practitioner presses down. And if the practitioner says yes, the muscle reflex is usually strong. And if the practitioner says no, then it's weak and the hand goes down. You can also go like this and say yes, no. This is the essence of it. And I have seen alternative healthcare practitioners use it in the sense that they would have the person hold up a bottle of, say, supplements. And then they would ask, will this strengthen the body or weaken the body? And I think there can be some validity to that. You can also have people that do it with food, for example. There are some various systems out there that use reflexology, muscle reflexes to expose psychological issues, psychological traumas, and resolve them. And I think there's some validity to that also. But it's very true, as the questioner says, that muscle testing is working with the subconscious mind. And the issue of is it objective? Is it pure? It's a little bit complicated. Because I think that when it comes to certain questions, the subconscious mind can be more neutral than the conscious mind. For example, is a supplement going to strengthen the body or weaken the body? It may be you can use the muscle reflexes to see something in a person's psychology that the conscious mind isn't able, or maybe even not even willing to see from the conscious level. So that's why I'm saying that there can be validity to it. I'm not a person who says this is an all or nothing, black or white question. I think there can be value to it, but it's true, as the questioner says. We ask the subconscious mind. We expect it to be all pure and wise, while we hope that this is a way to communicate with the divine. And it's first, is the subconscious mind all pure and wise? Well, obviously not. As the question also says, is the subconscious mind as much affected by the duality consciousness as our conscious mind? Well, even more so, it can very well be. Because what is it that blinds us to the dualistic state of mind? It's these, what I've called the subconscious selves, which I talk about in many videos. So we have these structures in the subconscious mind. That's a self, and it's semi-conscious, and therefore it's pulling on our conscious mind in a way to hide itself, so we can't see it. So obviously you are asking the subconscious mind with muscle testing, and if the person has a very strong subconscious self that doesn't want the person to see something, well, the muscle testing isn't going to be accurate. Now, the thing I would say about this is muscle testing a way to communicate with the divine, with spirit, with the spiritual realm. And that's where my answer to that would be no, I really don't think so. I honestly don't think so. And I have known people over the years who were very much into muscle testing and who experimented with it in all kinds of ways. And I personally think that Well, again, it becomes a very complicated or complex topic, because what do you mean when you say you're communicating with the divine? I have given a couple of other videos where I talk about, for example, channelers. There was a question about why are there so many different channelers, and they disagree on many things, the channeled messages. And what I was saying was, it's because they are not channeling from the same level. I've explained in many of my videos there's the purely physical level, and above that is a higher energetic vibrational level called the emotional realm, above that the mental, then the identity, and then finally beyond that is the spiritual realm. And the ascended masters are in the spiritual realm, but they are also beings in the identity, mental, and emotional realms that are seeking to communicate with human beings. And so the difference there is that ascended masters are ascended, which means they are receiving all the energy they could possibly need from a higher level, from source. They don't need any energy from us. They don't need attention from us. They don't need anything from us. So they're not communicating with us based on the deficit approach. But there are many of these beings in the identity, mental, and emotional realm. They need something from us. They need energy. They want our attention, or they may even want to influence us for various reasons. And personally, based on seeing people who have experimented with muscle testing, I believe that with muscle testing, you don't go to the spiritual realm. You go mostly to the mental, I think, is my evaluation of it based on reading the vibration of this. And this especially becomes problematic. See, let me give you an example. I knew a person who took a course in how to help resolve psychology by using muscle testing. And I believe there was some validity to that. But the practitioners or the teachers who taught this course also said, you use only muscle testing to get answers to these specific questions about psychology. You don't use it to get answers to cosmological questions, such as, is there a God or isn't there a God, or other questions like that. And this person then went beyond what she was taught and started using muscle testing to answer all kinds of questions, and believed that this was a way to communicate with the ascended masters. And based on my observation of this, I don't believe this is the case. Because the ascended masters, I mean, muscle testing is a form of what we can call divination. It's like I Ching, tarot cards, psychic readings, numerology, whatever you want to call it. It's a way to take a certain mechanical thing. Mechanical, muscle testing is mechanical. You get a yes or no question, or yes or no answer, and use it to answer many of these questions that, when it comes to these cosmological questions, is there a yes or no answer? I mean, you can formulate a yes or no question, but is it a meaningful answer? So what I'm saying is that I think when you start using muscle testing to answer these kind of questions, or even answer personal questions like, what should I do? Should I marry this person? Should I buy this house? Should I do this? Should I do that? I think then you are just ending up contacting beings in the mental realm who want your energy, and you give them that energy, and it ends up depleting you. And so so what I'm saying here is that, in my observation, the question really is muscle testing 100% accurate? Well, first of all, nothing is 100% accurate. But you can have valid uses of muscle testing that limit it to specific things. As I said, there are these systems out. There's more than one. That's why I'm not mentioning specific ones, because I don't really know all of them and know how good they are, and I don't want to recommend anything because I just don't know enough about them. But what I'm saying is there can be valid uses where you can get some insights, where you could potentially discover something about your psychology that your conscious mind would have difficulty seeing on its own. So this can be valid. But once you go beyond something like that and start asking more questions about what should I do, or is this person a fallen being or not a fallen being, or all kinds of questions you can come up with, then the accuracy goes way down. It doesn't mean that you couldn't always get some accurate answers. I mean, basically you could say if you're formulating a yes or no question, you're going to be right some of the time. I mean, it's just like rolling a dice. But I just personally feel that once you go into this, you're in quicksand. You're really in quicksand. And I have seen people who used muscle testing to make big personal decisions, and the results were not really that good. And the reason why I'm saying that I don't think the Ascended Masters uses this kind of divination is that their goal is to raise us to a point where we have sharpened our intuition so we have contact with the Christ mind and we have Christ discernment. And therefore we don't need this divination. I mean, why would you need to muscle test about making a personal decision if you can use your intuition and your Christ discernment and your willingness to experiment to just, okay, I am taking responsibility for my life making that decision. So what I'm saying is I have seen people who use this muscle testing and other forms of divination as an excuse for not taking responsibility for making their own decisions. And the moment you do that, you cut yourself off from the Ascended Masters, because they will not reinforce that tendency. And what I've also seen is when people do this, they become codependent on the muscle testing or whatever divination it is. They can't make any decisions without this. And that's not Christhood. That's not spiritual growth. That's not sharpening your intuition. So, again, it's one of those things. It has some valid uses, but you just have to be very careful. And you have to not use it for what it's not designed to do. In terms of, the question also asks, I assume that the subconscious mind is as much affected by the duality consciousness as is our conscious mind. And I would say that absolutely true that all these subconscious selves in the subconscious mind that are very much based on duality. And if you uncritically think that every time you test with a muscle response, you're going to get an unbiased, neutral answer from a higher source, many times you will be fooled because you have a very strong subconscious self. And I have seen this. Okay, so let's take a concrete example. Many spiritual people I have met, when we first find the spiritual path, we go through this phase. I've said it before, we grow up being often ostracized from society because we're spiritual. We don't fit in the religious camp, we don't fit in the materialist camp. So when we find a spiritual teaching, we have this subconscious self that has the desire for validation, to feel that we are okay, we are good people, we are special. Maybe we even have a special role to play, a special gift to outplay. And so this means we have a very strong subconscious self. And I've seen people use both muscle testing and other forms of divination to convince themselves, basically built onto this sense that they were special. And as I'm saying, it's natural we have this desire when we find a spiritual path. But to me, it's just a phase. When you have to come to a point where you just let it go, it just disappears, it fades away because you no longer want to be special compared to other people. You don't want to compare yourself to other people. You want to be one with your higher self. And I've seen people who went into this blind alley where they used, for example, muscle testing or other things to basically reinforce the sense of how special they were. And sometimes they managed to convince other people, and that then adds to the spiral until one day it crashes. I mean, one day usually what happens is that they are contemplating making a decision that has ramifications for themselves and maybe other people, and they base it on muscle testing, and it turns out that didn't give the result they expected. So all of a sudden now they start doubting the muscle testing or whatever it is, and then they end up in a no man's land. Now they don't know what to believe. Because, you see, what I'm saying is that ideally when you start the spiritual path, you gradually build your Christ discernment, which is your intuition. It comes from within, comes from your higher self. But when you use this outer divination, you're putting that process on pause. Because now you don't need to use your discernment, your intuition. You just muscle test or whatever you do. And so when you then crash, when you then realize you've been fooling yourself because it isn't 100% accurate as you thought it was, then you can very easily swing to the other extreme that, oh, it's absolutely no good, and then you're in this vacuum. You don't know what to do because you are still not willing to take responsibility for making your own decisions. Whereas if you, in the meantime, instead of using this muscle testing going into this blind alley, had worked on building your discernment, well, you wouldn't have been in a vacuum. Because when you gradually build discernment, you're experiencing that you're getting better and better at knowing intuitively what's the best thing to do in a situation, but you're also taking more responsibility and saying, it's not really a matter of knowing what's the right thing to do. It's a matter of me deciding, and then I see the outcome. You see, and this actually brings up something that I think is really the essence of the topic here. What I have seen in both in myself when I was younger and in many other spiritual people is that we have this dream of always being right, of being infallible. And it has a lot to do with what I have explained in my whole avatar psychology playlist, where I talk about how we came to this earth, we were exposed to this very serious attack from the fallen beings and put down. So we have this desire to always be right. So what I can see in the people I've known who've gone into muscle testing or other things is that they have this desire to have this mechanical way to determine, if I do this, I can't go wrong, I'm always right. And things are going to work out and my expectation is going to be fulfilled. And it always ends with a crash, sooner or later. Some people can keep the illusion going for a long time, but sooner or later it ends with a crash because something is going to happen that wasn't what you expected. But the real spiritual path is that you are saying, but it's not about being right all the time. It's a matter of making a decision, seeing the outcome. And when I see the outcome, I evaluate, okay, was this the best possible decision? If it wasn't, what was it in my psychology that caused me to make that decision? And then you look at that psychology, you discover that subconscious self. For example, do I have this desire to be special? Well, if you can discover that and let go of that self, you will feel much more free. You will also be able to make better decisions, have better intuition. And so what I'm saying is, instead of having this desire to use some outer mechanical thing to always be right, you're now on a progressive path where you are getting better and better intuition for making decisions, but you're also taking more and more responsibility. I am making these decisions, and I'm doing it because I want to grow, I want to learn. And so you are constantly growing, getting better and better at making decisions. And therefore, you never experience this crash. Because even if you make a decision and the outcome isn't what you wanted, you're just looking at it as an opportunity to look at your psychology. And sometimes it's a matter of saying, was my expectation really realistic? You know, was it realistic that I should have this important effect on the world and other people should look up to me and this and that? Or was it realistic that I should always be right and everything should work out? All of these things. So you see the stark contrast I'm trying to paint here is that on the one hand you are refusing to take responsibility for yourself and you're relying on some outer system to make right decisions or someone to tell you what to do, because your ascended masters will never tell you what to do. Or you are engaging in the path of increasing your intuition, but also your willingness to look at yourself. In essence, when you are in this, in essence, muscle testing is a binary, yes or no, right? So it's either right or wrong. But the path I'm talking about is you gradually overcome the sense of right and wrong, because the decision is just a decision. The outcome is just the outcome. It says something about your psychology, which you can then use to expose that psychology, let go of it, and grow. And then you go to the next level of the path. And that is what the path is all about. The path is not about being right all the time. The path is about raising your awareness.